Too many people in the PvZ community believe that PvZ2 is too easy, and I am one of them. So, I decided to create a challenge to test my own limits. Can I complete 100 days in endless mode under Nuzlocke rules? Now let me explain to you why this is so difficult. In a Nuzlocke, if any of your plants get eaten even once, they are unusable for the rest of the run. And if I happen to lose completely even once, the entire run ends. Also, a Nuzlocke challenge has been done before, but it was on the PvZ2 campaign, and the rule set they used is a little different than the one I chose to use. So, let me go over the important ones. Rule number 1. If a plant dies, it is dead forever. Rule number 2. All plants must be level 1. And now, here's where my rules start being a little different. Rule number 3. No power-ups or Zen Garden. Plant food is allowed, but no buying it with coins. Rule number 4. Instas and semi-instas serve as power-ups and can't die, but if they are brought into a level, they can only be used once. I promise this is needed, and it makes the insta plants a lot less useless. And lastly, rule number 5. Maybe the most controversial rule. Shoveling is allowed, but I cannot shovel a plant that is currently being eaten or about to be destroyed by an explorer or gargantuar zombie. I debated this rule a lot before starting this challenge and chose to allow it because I believe that shoveling is one of the most essential parts behind the strategy of PvZ2. And also, on a theoretical level, the player isn't killing the plants when shoveling, just replacing them. And one last thing before starting the challenge. Under Nuzlocke rules, you're supposed to name every plant, but that's difficult, so I'll only be naming the important ones. Okay. Let's begin. Before day 1 starts, I was given the option between Sweetheart Snare, Lava Guava, and Goo Pea Shooter. And of course, I chose Goo Pea Shooter. And you're important, so I'll name you Dookie. On day 1, I only make use of the Sunflower, who I'll name Disposable, and the Dookies because the other plants weren't really needed. And the Goo Pea, I knew it was good, but I didn't realize how good until it basically soloed this coffin zombie. I also love the animation it does when shooting. There's some oomph behind it. With that, this level was very easily beat, and this is one of the few times I can say that, because it gets much more difficult very quickly. After beating day 1, I was given these 3 options. Chomper, who is atrocious for this challenge. An extra 200 sun to start off the next level, also useless. And the third, and actually useful option, was Power Vine. So I'll name you Bartholomew. Similar to day 1, on day 2, I started by planting the Disposables and Dookies, who could have beat this entire level by themselves, but I chose to give the Pea Shooter a shot at stardom, but I don't think he helped much. I also placed a column of Power Vines not under the other plants. I don't know why. Most of this level was pretty easy, but this top lane made me realize that Goo Pea kinda starts falling off when put up against a clump of zombies, so I couldn't truly just be dependent on it. But aside from that little instance, we beat day 2. Afterwards, I could choose between these 3, and although Aki is my favorite from these, I felt that having an insta like Ghost Pepper would be very helpful in the rest of this run. On day 3, Disposables and Dookies were quickly placed, and I wish that the poison affected the tombstones, because without the poison, the Dookies take very long to destroy them, which isn't a problem right now, but knowing ancient Egypt, 70% of the map will be covered with them at some point. On day 3, I also correctly placed the Bartholomews, and this small combination of plants was able to get me through this level. After day 3, I chose one of the most monumental plants of this run, Cold Snapdragon, who I'll name Teddy. Soybean and Bok Choy are also solid, but sadly they were put up against one of the most broken plants in PvZ2. On day 4, I used a simple yet extremely effective strategy of placing the Teddies in these 2 places, because it ensures that every zombie in every lane will be slowed down by their frost breath, which is especially good against explorer zombies, and also big clumps of zombies, which was definitely needed because the number of zombies had drastically increased compared to the previous 3 days. So, with the help of the Cold Snapdragon, I was able to take down day 4 as well. Afterwards, I was given the choice between these 3, and the Melon Pole would be a good choice short term, but thinking long term and gargantuars, I chose Primal Pea Shooter, and you are Steve. On day 5, the adversity had yet again already increased, as this was the first level with 2 flags, meaning 2 big waves would be sent. But with the help of the same strategy as day 4, plus a column of Bartholomews, it seemed to go swimmingly. Until it didn't, because these coffins made it really far. Never mind. False alarm. Everyone stop worrying. Wait, where did this gargantuar come from? It's only level 5. And why did he launch this imp into the middle of my defenses? How was I meant to be an army of them in the future? I can't just keep plant fooding. And there she was, Nightcap, who in this game is basically unkillable even against gargantuars and explorer zombies. Because when any zombie gets close, she takes on a transparent form that is invincible, but still poisons. And for this, I will give her the name Shadow. On day 6, the number of starting gravestones had definitely increased, but still not too big of a problem because they didn't block any lanes that I was planting in. The Teddy Steve Dookie combo made this level a piece of cake. The only threat was this Gargantuar towards the end, who was held back by Steve's plant food, and with the help of Nightcap, I was able to defeat the Gargantuar and day 6. After day 6, I was given these 3 options, and controversially chose Daisy Chain, as typically the normal choice would be Ice Shroom. But as day 7 plays in the background, I should explain why I chose Daisy Chain. And it's because this run wasn't my first attempt at this challenge. It was actually close to my 30th attempt. Yeah, I originally had the brilliant idea to do this challenge on modern day because of the variety of zombies it contained. But this was a horrible idea, as I tried for literally 15 plus hours to beat it. And in those 15 plus hours, the highest level I made it to was 15, and only because I had the unkillable Nightcap. But that 15 hours wasn't completely a waste, as I got to try many new plants that I hadn't before, and one of them was Daisy Chain, who when evolved to its final form has a pretty solid stun effect. And since I already had an Ice Tolerant Teddy, I thought to leave Ice Shroom behind and bring Daisy Chain. And that was also all of day 7. After beating day 7, I chose a plant who's bound to reach the higher ranks in the plant world because of how good he is. I'll name you Will Smith. On day 8, again, the gravestones continued to inch towards the main lanes I was planting in. A lot of basic zombies in the beginning of the level, and I accidentally placed this headbutter lettuce down, so I made use of the shovel for the first time, as the plant was not on the brink of death. Plant food was just flying around, so I used it on Goopy, which was pretty cool because that one plant food also triggered the Power Vines plant food effect, like a 2-in-1 deal. Towards the end of the level, a couple Gargs were sent in, and Will Smith slapped them up properly, so it ended with a victory in our favor. And afterwards, I was given probably the worst selection, as these 3 are pretty awful compared to the other plants I already have. But I chose Dandelion as it is an appeasement family plant and could really combo well later on. On day 9, the Teddies took care of the early game as I planted the sunflowers as well as the regular combo, taking out the rest. But towards the end of this level, this single Garg made me a little worried as the Imp Throne invoked the thought in me that those would be a big problem in the future. And I could just shovel and replant when the plant isn't directly being attacked, but I'll need much more sun for that than I am producing right now. After day 9, I was given a pretty easy choice in Enlightenment, because if I happen to get Sun Shroom, the sky will go crazy, and I chose to name it Sun, but with the note. On day 10, the gravestones had finally reached the lanes of the Teddies, so I had to make use of a Dookie to remove one of the gravestones to make room for a Teddy. Day 10 was also the first level of the challenge to have 4 flags, which is the highest number of flags a level can have, and we're only 10% of the way to the finish line, but also there weren't any Gargantuars this level, so it ended without too much mental stress accrued. And afterwards, I chose Tall Turnip, because I don't know what this middle guy does, and Sweet Potato is one of the less useful plants for this challenge. Also, I'll name the Tall Turnip Fidget. On day 11, I forgot to press record, but you're gonna have to believe me that I didn't lose any plants this level, and don't worry, all you chaos lovers, your time to shine is quickly approaching. After I beat day 11 though, I was given some awful choices, and just chose the butter thing. I'm gonna be honest, I don't ever end up using this one. On day 12, the gravestones originally took the place of both of my Teddies, so I had to plant them one lane back, and after the graves were destroyed, I moved them up a lane using the shovel. I might have lied, I actually did use this butter thing, but all it did after I placed it was just laugh. Even with this butter thing's atrocious performance, I was able to defeat day 12. But after day 12, we had some heavy picks. All 3 of these are crazy damage dealers, but truly it was between Winter Melon and Mega Gatling Pea, as the Jack-o'-lantern just counteracts the freeze from the Cold Snapdragon. And since we already had a slowing plant in Cold Snapdragon, I chose to go with Mega Gatling Pea. Day 13 started, and you might have noticed that I didn't name the Mega Gatling Pea. And that's because I only use it in a couple levels, as it actually isn't very usable in this challenge because of its crazy cost. The level was going pretty well in the beginning stages, and also I've been using the Enlightenment once per level, but I should mention that it's actually terrible when comboing with the regular Sunflower. But an even bigger problem this level was that I replaced Primal Pea Shooter with Mega Gatling Pea, and suddenly a Gargantuar appeared, so I had to use my very first Ghost Pepper to take it out. And by the time more Gargs appeared, I had collected enough sun to place a Mega Gatling Pea in every lane, making this last wave very easy. Next up, I was given an insanely easy choice in Apple Mortar, as the stuns will be extremely useful against the Gargs, and the other 2 plants are kinda meh. Also, a little fun fact, I'm allergic to apples. Weird, right? And for this reason, I'll name you Enemy. Day 14 was a pretty easygoing day. 1 flag, no Gargs, sunflowers, dookies, teddies, and enemies destroyed the zombies, as well as the strategic tile trinket placement, ensuring all the zombies would feel the cold pain. This level was so easy, surely nothing would go wrong day 15, right? Right after day 14, I instantly chose Banana Launcher, as I know it's really good and don't know much about Levitator, but this was one of my first mistakes in plant choice, and you'll see why later on. Day 15 just started off weird. I placed the Cold Snapdragon and Tile Turnip one lane forward. I used Goo Pea Shooter to try and destroy a gravestone. I don't know if day 15 was cursed or I was just nervous, because if you remember, this was the farthest I'd made it in my previous attempts. But something was spooky about this level, and on top of all this negative energy, this level had 4 flags in total, as well as Gargantuars. Also, remember when I was really scared of the imps that get thrown by the Gargs? Well, yeah, we lost our very first plant of the entire run, and it happened to be my main one, Dookie. And I know this is sudden, but please, allow me to give a few words in remembrance of Dookie. Dookie, you were my very first one I had taken, and you weren't just any Dookie, you were a good Dookie. May you rest in peace. Everyone, please, a moment of silence for Dookie. Thank you. Now back to gaming. I quickly replaced the missing spot with a Steve, and still in a state of grief was thinking death is inevitable. We come and we go, some faster than others, but all we can do in this life is try our best to not let that happen again. So from this point forward, I vow to never let a plant die again. Okay, level 15 might go down as the worst day in plant history, RIP Bartholomew. And from this point forward, I won't let any plant die ever again. I promise. Though some devastating losses, I was able to recuperate and beat day 15. The choices after day 15 weren't the best, but I think Snap Pea is pretty cool, so I chose it. Also, I forgot to press record on day 16 as well, but I promise this is the last time this happens. Also, no plants were lost again, and afterwards I chose Boing Setup, who I will name Hammer. I believe on day 16 I'd replace the 2 diminished plants with Nightcap and Apple Mortar, because that was the strategy I was using day 17. Nightcap's Pierce Poison combo is capable of taking out any non-Gargantuar zombie, and as this level contains 0 Gargs, it was pretty simple. After day 17, we got the one that every run needs to even have a chance at winning, Pokra, who I will name Mantis. On day 18, I brought in Pokra instead of Nightcap, and Buttercup for some reason instead of Primal Pea Shooter. I don't know what I was thinking, but thankfully Pokra was able to carry through this level against the many Gargs that were sent. Also, a column of Pokra were placed in the 3rd column from the left, and these were literally on there to counteract the imps being thrown. That's how scared I was from those guys. Also, the stuns from Apple Mortar were a huge help in taking down the Gargs, but although this defense was solid, this wouldn't be enough to beat the very late game levels, which had me very scared. After day 18, I was given the choice between these 3, and although I really like the Cactus and Homing Thistle is literally in my top 3 plants, I chose to go with the Mint, as I thought it would be the most helpful in the future. Day 19 started with 2 layers of disposables, yes, I didn't forget your name, and then Teddy, Mantis, Enemy, and Steve spam. And Steve really added that last level of security to this strategy, as Apple Mortar stunned and Steve would just push the Garg back. With this combo, we were able to pretty easily beat day 19 as well. After day 19, I was given these 3 options and I chose Reinforcement, because in my mind, I was still trying to think what would make this strategy safer, and at this point in time, my answer was Pumpkin, so that I could better protect the plants in the 3rd column from the imps. Day 20 was very similar to the previous 2 levels regarding the strategy, but the placements were a little different, and I was still testing the best ones. I even added Teddies back here just for the imps. You can really tell that I was terrified of those little guys, but again, with this strategy, I was able to beat day 20. And finally, after 20 levels, I acquired myself a second and better sun producer, Moonflower, who I will name Wanda. Day 21 starts off with me using Mantises to destroy the existing gravestones, and then slowly setting up the rest of my defenses with Teddy and Shadows. With no Gargs in sight, the Shadows easily took care of the zombies. After day 21, the choices were Shadow Shroom, Nocturne, and Toadstool. I'd used Nocturne in my previous attempt and wasn't really a fan of it, so I chose to take Shadow Shroom. On day 22, I actually brought in the Moonflower, which I had hesitated on day 21 because if you didn't know, the Moonflower can't be boosted by the Enlightenment since they are in 2 different families. But I decided to test it out anyways and realized that the sun production just by the Moonflower was better than both of the others combined. This Shadow Shroom's only purpose was to let the Moonflower produce more sun, since the Nightcap already poisons, so I ended up actually replacing the Shroom with the Pokra. And you might have noticed that the only plant that I was comfortable placing in front of the Cold Snapdragon was the Nightcap, since it's unkillable. But the rest of the plants I was too scared to place further forward, so they all stayed behind the Cold Snapdragon. After day 22, I chose Ailment, as its able to boost Nightcap and any other poisoning plants I get in the future. On day 23, looking back, my Moonflower placement is absolutely atrocious. I do fix it later on though. This level, I even brought in Mega Gatling Peas, as I felt I had enough sun production now, and they seemed to work pretty well. But since no Gargantuars appeared, I couldn't really gauge how good it was. After day 23, I was given the mint that boosts Pokra's family, so I quickly chose it, as the other two options weren't too good. On day 24, it became pretty obvious that the Shadow, Teddy, Pokra combo was now my go-to, as in the present, this strategy is working perfectly. Also, I plant-fooded Nightcap for the first time and found out that I had a broken ability. After day 24, I had some pretty interesting choices. Guacadile wasn't feasible, as it's only good when it gets killed, and Blaze Leaf is good, but it counteracts the Cold Snapdragon. So, I ended up choosing Explodovine. On day 25, I cleaned up my Moonflower placements and continued using the same strategy. I was getting pretty lucky with no Gargantuars in these last several levels. Also, I was placing multiple columns of Nightcaps up front, but now I am realizing that this doesn't actually do much at all, since poison doesn't stack. The Tile Turnip Nightcap combo was pretty cool though. After day 25, I had some pretty solid choices, and ended up choosing Bamboo Spartan as it's just a tanky Pokra. So I thought I could ditch the pumpkin idea and just place this guy in the third column. Day 26 starts in the normal fashion of Teddy and Wanda, but also made use of the Explodovine to get rid of the gravestones. I decided to bring in Bamboo Spartan as well to test if there were any flaws in the strategy, and sadly there was one, the recharge timer on the Bamboo Spartan. It was too long compared to Pokra, but that aside, these 3 layers of shadows were able to take care of this entire level. And again, Bonk Choi was put up against tough competition of Shadow Pea, especially since I have Moonflower, so obviously did take Shadow Pea. By day 27, I had started utilizing my plant food early on to get 4 Moonflowers down in a square pattern to maximize sun production. The level also sent a very quick and sneaky sandstorm into the second layer, but I was fast enough to respond with a Bamboo Spartan of my own to defeat the 2 zombies. And I had stupidly forgotten that the Shadow Peas have this ability to take down 2 zombies if they get close and then die themselves. So I had to quickly shovel this one once it was safe and then place a Bamboo Spartan in front. And all while this was happening, I almost lost this Apple Mortar. I quickly placed another Shadow Pea 1 lane back and then doubled back to replace the Apple Mortar once it was safe with the Bamboo Spartan. And this last Shadow Pea plant food allowed me to win. After day 28, I was given these 3 choices, and I love Starfruit, but I had to go with the Heat Seeker. After the intensity of day 27, day 28 started all clunky. I mistimed this Teddy and let the Conehead get through, who I then had to get rid of using this Bamboo Spartan. And right after this happened, I almost lost this Pokra and quickly had to plant food it. That literally would have been the end of this run if it had gotten eaten. But after these 0 IQ plays, I got a column of Mantises down, as well as a column of Shadow Pea way in the back, learning from the last level. And with the help of these Apple Mortars and another column of Mantis, I was able to beat the Gargantuars on the last flag. Afterwards, I was given some pretty bad choices, but went with Chili Pepper because I like its design. On day 29, I made use of Teddy, Mantis, Wanda, and Shadow Pea to beat the entirety of the level. Also, some help from Explodovine and Heat Seeker. But around this time was when I started to truly feel stressed, because I was already about 3.5 hours into the run and knew that if I lost, I would have to restart again. And these defenses were enough to handle these levels, but I just couldn't get the eerie feeling of this wasn't enough off my shoulders. But I kept trudging through. After day 29, I could have chosen this mint, but had realized that none of the mints are very helpful, since I can only use them once. So I ended up taking Solar Sage, since I've seen it produce insane sun in endless mode. Day 30 was a level with no Gargantuars, so I was able to quickly get down all the plants I needed to take down this level safely, and ended this level with Symmetry. After day 30, I was given these 3 choices, and clicked on Cauliflower, and it said, hypnotizes random zombies, and thought, oh, that might be good for Gargantuars in the future, so I took it. Also, if you made it this far, you should consider subscribing. This is how day 31 started off. Like, bruh. Thankfully, I had Explodovine to help with the gravestones, and I know some of you have been screaming at the screen at me for not using Boing Seta for the gravestones. You gotta believe me, I didn't know that it destroyed obstacles at this point in the run, but I do learn later on and make use of it. Also, at this point, the game started getting annoying with the early sandstorms, as I panicked one too many times with those. The rest of the level was pretty easy though. After day 31, I decided to finally take another ice plant, as I was actually getting worried that I might lose the Cold Snapdragon. So, I chose Ice Shroom. And I had seen that day 32 wouldn't have any Gargantuars, so I took the risk to test out the Ice Shroom, just to see if it was better than Cold Snapdragon in this challenge. And honestly, it went pretty well, because there was no worry of it dying because of its high damage. The cold snapdragon can hit 2 lanes in front, meaning more time that the zombies are slowed. But the ice shroom's aura only reaches 1 lane in front, so for now it will have to be backup for the cold snapdragon. After day 32 we had an option between these 3, and honestly they're kinda meh. I mean, I like Laser Beam, but I could tell he wouldn't be good for this challenge. But I still chose to take it because I didn't like the other 2 either. Day 33, again with the insane gravestones. And again, I used Explodivine, and I had brought back Teddy alongside Enemy and Steve since this level would have Gargantuars. I had the normal setup all placed, but when the first wave was approaching, I quickly shoveled the Moonflowers in the back and placed Steves in the lanes that had sent Gargantuars, allowing us to take down this level. And this is why Nightcap is crazy. Most other plants would have just been dead here. After day 33, I chose to take the Winter Mint, and the only reason for this was that Duskglobber and Mango Fire had let me down extremely in my modern day attempts. Day 34 started with me using Explodivine to clear graves, and usually I would shovel it, but this time I couldn't since an Explorer zombie was very close to it. So I quickly placed a Teddy to take care of it, and then Mantises and Steves came in to do their duty. Also, I'd realized that this was the perfect lane for Nightcap, as its range is 4 tiles to its right, and this helped me beat the level. After day 34, I was given the option of a much needed plant, Power Lily, who I will name Sheesh. And this was when I made my one and only tweak to the rules. After assessing the situation, I am allowing infinite use of Power Lily. I didn't realize that this challenge would be extremely difficult, even on Ancient Egypt, and it's supposed to be the easiest world. Also, I thought it was a little fair since I'm not using any coins or allowed to buy plant food. And it made this more fun. Now that I'm done yapping, the end of day 35 almost went horribly because I just decided not to plant any Steves, but Explodivine came in clutch as I just placed it in the lane between 2 Gargs, helping take them out. After day 35, I chose this plant. I actually don't remember its name. I want to say Pear Cub, but that's PvZ Heroes. On day 36, Explodivine again came in clutch as the level set in a sandstorm very early on, and right on top of this cold snapdragon, who I defended with Explodivine. Also, this lingering zombie in the back was destroyed with Explodivine, and the rest of this level ended very fast as I wasn't even able to place all the plants down properly. After day 36, I quickly chose Peppermint because it does a whole board clear on gravestones. Day 37 was a little scary as it had Gargantuars and 4 flags, which means a lot of Gargantuars in that last wave, and for some reason I didn't bring in Apple Mortar. I had a solid defense lined up, but there were a couple close calls leading up to the second flag. But after I shoveled the column of Moonflowers and added a second layer of Steves, they were able to stall the Gargs just well enough that they didn't reach the Teddies, and we beat day 37. And afterwards, we weren't given any good options, so I chose Blooming Heart. Day 38, I almost lost Explodivine to this Explorer zombie, but I was able to quickly plant food it to save it, and realized that it explodes and it gets armored up when plant fooded, which I thought was pretty cool. I also brought in Shadow Pea instead of Primal Pea because there were no Gargantuars, and the Shadow Pea does well against large clumps of zombies. And with these plants, day 38 ended up being pretty easy, even though there were 4 flags. And afterwards, again, wasn't a fan of any of these, so I just went with the Mint. This one boosts slowing plants. Day 39 started off similarly with Explodivines, Wandas, Teddies, Mantises, and lastly Shadows, who took care of most of the zombies. There was only 1 flag with 0 Gargantuars, making this the easiest combination of level, praying for more of these. And here it is, the pumpkin. Hopefully it's as useful as I thought it would be. On day 40, it seems like I'd forgotten how Moonflowers worked for a little bit, but then came to my senses. And these sandstorms at the beginning of the level had become one of the biggest threats, as this one almost took my Moonflower from me. But Pokra was able to beat it. With all Pokras placed in the 3rd column, I started placing down the pumpkins for defense. I also brought in Cauliflower just to test it out against Gargantuars, but there were 2 major problems with it. The first was that its recharge is literally one of the longest in the game at 45 seconds. And the second major problem, I looked this up on the wiki after this game, it only had a 5% chance to target Gargantuars, which goes against my whole purpose of bringing it in. And to add on to this bad news, I almost lost Pokra this level way too many times, but my plant food timing came in clutch with the Primal Pea shooters. But with my plant food supply basically depleted, it was now up to the PvZ gods to let my defense make it through without any casualties, and thankfully they did. Afterwards, even though it counteracted the cold snapdragon's cooldown, I chose the Pyrevine. On day 41, I finally made use of the Peppermint and destroyed all the gravestones in the beginning of the level. With no sudden sandstorms, I was also easily able to get my Pokras down, and after that, all that was left to do was place the Nightcaps and Shadow Peas. And since no Gargs were on this level, we were able to take down all 4 flags without any problem. After day 41, we're given some interesting options in Hammerroot and Peavine. I almost took Hammerroot because it's the newest plant added to the game, and I wanted to try it out. but I also remembered that I still had Mega Gatling Pea still in my available plants, so I ended up choosing Pea Vine. On day 42, I preemptively placed Pea Vines in the farthest left column because I knew I would place Gatling Peas there. But this plan backfired very fast because in order to shovel the Moonflower, I have to first shovel the Pea Vine, so I kind of just did double the work for nothing. And although this is a lot of damage, it is mostly single target as the random plant food ability is unreliable. So I think Nightcap is still just a little bit better than this combo. Afterwards, I chose this mint because I was too far into the game to make any use of Grimrose and Nightshade. Day 43 started with a square of Wandas as well as Mantises and Teddies, you know, the usual, and then quickly Apple Mortars and Nightcaps as the last flag was approaching and was bringing Gargs with it. Couple Steve finished the combo of Garg Decimation. Afterwards, I chose Scaredy Shroom as I still needed something that confidently took care of the early game for me. And for some reason, I thought Scaredy Shroom would be the answer since it's cheap and does good damage. This was an awful idea. As this whole level turned into pure chaos, I was forced to place Nightcaps in the back lane just to catch the Sandstorms. I also came so close to losing Moonflower here as well. Moonflower is another plant right now that if I lose it, the game is basically over because I only have regular Sunflower to replace it. As the level went on, I heavily recuperated without losing any plants and was able to shovel and place everything in their regular positions, allowing me to ensure victory. Can't ever trust Scaredy Shroom again. After day 44, I had the choice between Sap Fling and Levitator. I ended up choosing Sap Fling and I'll name it Ayo. The starting slow was so good on Ayo that I was able to place down all my Wandas, Teddies, and Mantises without any danger. Looking back at this level, it was pretty easy as the Steves helped with stalling as well. But somehow I was so naive that I was thinking that all the slow effects stacked with each other, which I learned later on that they don't. But for now, you'll all have to suffer with me as we watch this unfold. Like, there are literally 4 plants here that slow down, not including Steve, which means the Gargs should basically not be moving, but they just keep on moving forward. If it weren't for Steve, I would have been heavily screwed in this run. The Gargs make it so far, and we literally aren't even halfway through this challenge. After this level though, the Sun Gods finally answered my prayers and bestowed upon me a Sunshroom. Witch Hazel would have been good if it could insta-kill Gargs, but it can't do that. I'll name you Sponge. Day 46, I replaced Moonflower and brought in Sunshroom and Enlightenment, and I might have gotten a little too greedy with the Sunshrooms. I tried to place 2 columns of them before using Enlightenment, which almost cost me the Sunshroom on the first level I had it. I was able to take care of most of the Sandstorm with panic placed Teddies and plant food, but this one just perfectly stuck behind this Teddy and evaded damage. And I couldn't shovel either the Sunshroom or Teddy since they were both in danger. So with quick thinking, I decided that both of these were much more important than a lawnmower, so I launched it and lost my very first lawnmower of the entire run. It was sad, but I was still thankful that I was able to pull this off. I placed a Pokra at the bottom to take care of this zombie and quickly used Enlightenment to get the sun production going and make the sun shrooms grow. Placements were looking very ugly, but after things calmed down a little, I shoveled all the plants and placed them in the correct spots. This level wasn't supposed to be difficult since there were literally 0 Gargantuars, but it really shows how one misstep can mess up the whole run and require sacrifices to make up for it. But with everything in place, the rest of the level was a breeze. The choices afterwards were all pretty solid, but Kiwi Beast is a little risky and I don't really need another insta, so I ended up choosing Primal Walnut. Day 47 was a pivotal level in this challenge, because I for some reason had decided to replace Pokra with Will Smith, aka Headbutter Lettuce. I was looking at his stats and it literally has triple Pokra's health, does 40 more damage, and has a chance to throw butter onto what it's attacking. Now this doesn't mean it's better than Pokra overall, but it definitely is better in 3rd column duty, because I don't have to worry about bringing in Pumpkin since Headbutter Lettuce has a lot of health. Also, it can attack backwards as well as take care of the entire early game by itself. I don't have to place Cold Snapdragon for its protection. You'll also notice that I didn't bring Cold Snapdragon because it finally clicked in my mind that there was a chance that the stalls didn't stack. So I decided to start trying new strategies to try and put up against the crazy number of Gargs with higher HP that would start showing up, and with no Gargs this level, the strategy held up pretty well. After day 47, I chose Electric Blueberry, who has the same problem as Cauliflower because of its long recharge and 5% chance in hitting Gargs. On day 48, I used Enlightenment on 7 Sunshrooms and had Will Smith slap up the first couple of zombies. Afterwards, which I added Nightcaps, Apple Mortars, and Steves to take care of the rest of the level, which they did with these. After day 48, we weren't given any good choices, so I just chose Red Stinger since I was familiar with what it did. Day 49 was a lesson learned type of level, because I'd become so confident in this strategy that it completely slipped in my mind that Headbutter Lettuce, though it does a lot of damage, it can only hit 1 zombie at a time, whereas Pokra can hit infinite. I at first had 2 columns of Apple Mortars and 1 layer of Steve, but saw this was quickly falling apart, as the Gargs got closer and closer. So I had to replace all the apples with Steves, which held up better, but I ended the level with 0 plant food when I usually end with max. After 49, I chose the plant that can toggle between fire and ice. It's a cool concept, but it isn't too good. On day 50, I chose to give Cauliflower another chance, since Apple Mortar kinda sold me last level. But again, the recharge was too long for this plant to make any sense. But thankfully there weren't any Gargs this level, so we were able to sweep it. And there it was. I was finally halfway there. And after this was when I slowly started cooking up a pretty good strategy. After day 50, I chose this plant just because I saw that it stunned. Day 51, I realized, why am I bringing either Pokra or head butter lettuce when I could just bring both? So this is what I did. The slow from the Pokra and the nightcap was just as good as Cold Snapdragon, so it wasn't needed anymore. And this freed up a whole nother lane for a second Pokra. I couldn't truly see how good this strategy was in this level because there were no Gargantuars sent, but I had a good feeling. After day 51, I was given some pretty solid choices. If you saw my 100 level speedrun, you'll remember that these two were the main plants I wanted because they made the speedrun easier. But that only applies when the plants are max level, which here they aren't, so I ended up choosing Magnifying Grass. Day 52 was also a very pivotal level because I replaced Nightcap for Sapling. Overall, Nightcap is better, but when it comes to slowing down zombies and the cost to do it, Sapling is much better. 52 started with 2 columns of sponges and then right next to them a column of Will Smiths. I slowly started to spam Pokras and all while doing that replaced the second column of sponges with Saplings and then replaced the first column of Pokra with Steve. Lastly, getting rid of all sun production and adding more Steves. And all of this combined was very much overkill for the rest of this level. Even the coffin zombies could barely make it past the first block. The stall was so good that it was unintentionally elongating the level, so I placed a Pokra and Will Smith to take care of them. I was at a point in the run that I was seeing a lot of repetitive plants, and this time I chose this one because it looked really spooky, which means it's gotta be good, right? On day 53, you can tell that I was still testing different variations of the strategy out, because I for some reason Tau turniped the head butter lettuce. Also, a good strategy change that came within this level was placing the Sapling in the 4th lane from the left, and placing the Pokra in the 2 lanes in front. Having more than 2 lanes of Pokra didn't really make any sense because its range seems to be from about 2 to 2.5 lanes to the right. Head butter lettuce was of course still in that 3rd lane for early game and then the late game imps. Lastly, the back 2 lanes are for sun at the start of the level, but then slowly get replaced with another long range plant, which in this case was Steve. And as you can see from this gameplay, this defense did very well at keeping the Gargs at bay. After day 53, I chose Jack-o'-lantern because the other 2 options didn't really do that much, and from what I've seen, Jack-o'-lantern does pretty significant damage. And here it is, day 54, when I finally brought in Boingsetta, and oh was it beautiful. Also, Boingsetta is one of the weird plants that has an insta-like ability where it destroys all structures as well as slowing and knocking back zombies when placed. But since it still is a normal plant afterwards, I can kinda exploit it a little bit by shoveling and replanting. The only thing that gets in the way of this is its recharge. I even incorporated it into my defense at this level and it did pretty well against the Gargantuars. I wasn't 100% on its reliability though. But that aside, the Boingsetta can even bounce back dead Gargs. Afterwards, I was given some pretty decent options in Shine Vine, Dusklobber, and Cherry Bomb. And even though I knew I wasn't going to use it, I chose Shinevine. Day 55 started off pretty normally, but I placed Steve in place of Sapling for some reason. I think maybe it was so Steve's shot reached the zombies quicker. There was a little close call in this bottom middle lane, but I was able to plant food Steve and then quickly place a Pokra in front of it. And with no Gargs in sight, the rest of this level was B. After, we're given some mat options and chose Fume Shroom, because I remember its plant food used to be one of my favorites when this game first dropped. On day 56, again, 7 sponges were placed and boosted using the Enlightenment. The early game graves and zombies were dealt with using Will Smith and Pokra. I also started using Tau Turnip on the Sunshrooms, which was the correct move as it heavily boosted my sun production. I should have done this way earlier, but I think my brain got backwards wired because I couldn't do this with Moonflower since its plant food ability really sucks. This level also had 1 flag, so it was beat pretty easily. After day 56, these were my options, and now I know a lot of people really like Meteor Flower, and I do too, but I didn't need any more attacking plants, so I chose Concealment, in case I went back to using Shadow plants. Day 57 was pretty cool because of the level with Gargs and 4 flags, but the starting game sun production had gotten so good that I was able to basically have most of my defenses set up before the first big wave even came in. With the number of Gargantuars being crazy, there was a lot of imps thrown, so I would occasionally replace the head butter lettuce when they weren't being damaged. I don't think they really needed the replacement, but I did it just in case. Afterwards, I was given these 3 options and chose to take Mistletoe because it would be the most helpful if ever needed. Day 58 didn't have any Gargantuars, so I brought in Boinksetta for the easy grave cleanup, and the rest was handled by the two Pokra, Will Smith and Ayo. The selection phase after day 58 was a game changer because I decided to look up what exactly Levitator did, and in my mind all it did was just lift zombies and stall them. But what I found was crazy. Every time it lifts zombies, it also has a 50% chance to just throw them off the lane completely, and it always targets the furthest up zombies, so no weird 5% chance to hit Gargs like the Kali Power. Levitator also had a solid recharge rate, and the best part was that it only cost 50 sun. When the Gargs came in was when it started to shine. Gargs just started floating away, and the best thing about them floating away is that they take the imps along with them. There was a little problem though. A lot of the times the small zombies would be in front of the Gargs and end up taking the hit from the Levitator, which kind of messes up the whole plan. But for now it was working, and with the help of these guys we were able to beat day 59. After day 59 I took this plant in the middle. I don't really know why, other than the reason the other two weren't really needed. Day 60 was again a level with Gargantuar, so I didn't bring Boinksetta and had to implement this weird little pattern to get my plants in the right spots. I would place a Pokra behind a grave, and after it destroyed the grave I'd place another Pokra. This was the strategy I had to use to counter the annoying graves. This level I also forgot to place my second Pokra column at first and had already shoveled all my sunshrooms, which made for some close calls, but slowly just the natural sun was able to help me with the second layer and we beat the level without any casualties. After day 60 however was probably the most pivotal selection, and there is a chance you're confused because we've seen all three of these at some point in this run. And yes, you're right, but I had no idea what Blast Spinner did, so I searched it up, and I know I was just heavily glazing the Levitator, but its reign was short-lived because it immediately got replaced by Blast Spinner. I'll explain what it does as the next level plays. So Blast Spinner can attack its own lane and its adjacent lanes. Its attack web zombies, which locks them in place for 4 seconds, which is really good just by itself, but it also has an ability where there's a 35% chance that it cocoons the zombie instead, instantly killing it, which you might be thinking, this is worse than Levitator since it has a 50% chance. But the thing about Blast Spinner is that it fires every 6.5 seconds compared to Levitator's 10 seconds, basically evening out the chance. But Blast Spinner also has one more thing in its arsenal. The cocoons that I just mentioned, they after a few seconds explode and deal 1100 damage in a 3x3 area. So even if it isn't Gargs getting cocooned, they'll still take massive damage. The Blast Spinner was the last piece of the puzzle to the strategy that I was looking for, and now there's only one plant left that could improve the strategy slightly, and you'll see it later on. The zombies just exploding from the cocoons look so satisfying. Oh, and I will name Blast Spinner Spider-Man. I know, very creative. After day 61, I chose Celery Stalker because it's my favorite option of the three. Day 62 was the easiest combo, as I mentioned way earlier on, with only one flag and no Gargantuars. So this compact group of plants was enough to fight off all the zombies and safely make it to the next level. After day 62, I chose to take Hocus Crocus instead of the other two because when researching the Levitator, its description also mentioned that it was very similar to Hocus Crocus. Day 63 had 3 flags, but there weren't any Gargantuars. There was a certain order that had formed of placing plants, and if I tried to do anything else, the whole level would become much more difficult than it needed to be. The order was 2 rows of Sunshrooms while Headbutter Lettuce defended them. Even though I know Headbutter Lettuce is enough for Explorer Zombie, it was always tense seeing them get so close. Next up, I would place the Pokra and then the Sapfling, so that the Pokra could defend the Sapfling. And the last process of the plant placing was replacing all the Sunshroom with Blast Spinners. This was more than enough to basically beat most levels. After day 63, there was only one more plant that I was looking for, and it wasn't any of these 3, so I just randomly chose this plant on the right. Day 64 was one of those annoying levels which had a lot of gravestones, but I couldn't bring in Boinksetta because there were also Gargantuars. I would have to sometimes improvise as I did on day 64 because the game would send the Gargs faster than I could have my defenses set up, and I improvised by quickly shoveling one of the Sunshrooms in the way back and replacing it with Sapfling, as well as the Blast Spinners to stall the Gargs. But once I set everything up, the rest of the level would be pretty easy. After day 64, I chose this Balloon Plant, who has that cool Doomshroom plant food, but I won't be using it this run because it heavily sold me in my modern day runs. Day 65, though it only had one flag, got pretty scary because this guard got pretty far before I realized that it was there, and I panic placed a Sapfling, which right after I realized there's no Pokra to attack, and there's a gravestone blocking the lane, which made me quickly plant food Headbutter Lettuce, and thankfully the random butter throwing hit the guard, and I stalled it long enough to where I was able to place down my second Blast Spinner, and the stall was so good that they took it out without the help of a Pokra. The rest of day 65 went by smoothly. Next up, I chose one of the up and coming goats of the PvZ community, Gumnut. Day 66 had 4 flags and it sent in some early sandstorms, but we had had some weirdly placed Pokra and Will Smith to take care of them. Also, some very early and scary Gargs were sent, but one was killed normally and the other got decimated by Blast Spinner. After these few stressful instances, I was able to get my defenses down and beat the rest of day 66. I didn't really know who to choose after this level, so I ended up choosing the coolest looking one. Day 67 was the first level in a while without Gargs, so I was able to bring in Boingsetta and see some satisfying grave destroying. It feels so weird that this plant exists and it does two insta-like things when planted, and then after also acts like a normal plant. But hey, anything that helps me, I'm okay with. You can tell this level was easy going because I plant footed the sapling for some reason. After beating one huge wave, day 67 was also complete. Afterwards, I was given some solid options and ended up going with Filament. Day 68 had 4 flags in total, but no Gargs. So again, Boingsetta was brought. And if you're still watching the video at this point, let me know in the comments how you feel about me placing and shoveling up the Boingsetta right away. Is it fair, or should I add an extra rule when I do this again? Not much to say on this level besides that it was such a long level that I got down all 7 tile turnip, which is kind of crazy. After day 68, I chose this mint because I knew I wasn't going to be using Gold Bloom at all. Day 69, nothing too special happened. In game at least. These small moves are a little scary to pull off because one misplacement and the whole run might be GG's. But after getting down the Pokras in these levels, the rest of the zombies are a breeze. After day 69, I chose Spike Rock. Day 70, back came the Gargs, so Boingsetta was replaced by Blast Spinner. This was one of those lucky levels though, where by the time the first Garg is sent, my defenses are already good enough to deal with them. With each level that passed by, this plant that I'd never seen or used before was slowly becoming one of my favorites in the entire game, solely because of the reason it was carrying me. After day 70, I chose Shrinking Violet because in my mind I was going to use it infinitely and then quickly remember the insta-plant rules. Day 71 was Gargless and had a pretty satisfying Boingsetta to start off the level. This is again a 1 flag God combo, so it was pretty easily beat. Afterwards, I ended up choosing Kernel Pult because it's one of those plants that can stall all zombies in the screen with 1 plant food. But I want to take a moment to give some praise to Sundew Tangler. Normally, it's a pretty bad plant, but in this challenge, it kind of carried me in my modern day runs. Because like Nightcap, it's basically unkillable. So it's just free stun and sun without stressing its death. The only drawback is its semi-slow recharge. Okay, that's enough glaze. The opposite to day 71, day 72 was the worst combo of level design, with Gargs and 4 flags. The only challenges with these are usually the first 2 flags because I'm usually still prepping my defenses, but by the 3rd flag everything is set in stone and I start hitting real life prayers because losing this far into the run would be detrimental to my mental health. Thankfully the prayers keep on working. After day 72 I was given some interesting choices and chose Twin Sunflower for some backup sun production. Day 73 was Gargs with 3 flags. I got down 2 rows of sponges, a layer of Will Smiths, a layer of AOs, 2 layers of Mantises, and then towards the end, replace the sponges with Spider-Man. Also, I was going to mention this at some point, but calling all the plants these nicknames feels so weird. Except for Will Smith and Sponge. Those feel fitting for some reason. This level, a couple Gargs got kinda close, but with 0 casualties, I still won. Afterwards, I chose Ultimato. This might be my favorite plant name. It goes kinda hard, not gonna lie. Day 74 had 1 flag with Gargs, so I had to be quick with my placements because there was a good amount of gravestones to get rid of as well. But the level had a pretty slow start, so getting my defenses down before the Gargs was pretty easy. I also only needed 4 Blast Spinners this level. After day 74, Sundew Tangler was back, and I glazed it so much, so I was kinda forced to take it. Day 75 was again the L combo of Gargs and 4 flags. And I don't really know if I've properly portrayed how stressful this whole challenge was. Literally from day 1 to the last level, I was so nervous. You guys don't really see the in-between round plotting that I was doing, but there was times I was literally spending 20 minutes on the plant selection screen, just thinking about who I should take in and who I shouldn't. But with the stress, every win or good move felt like I was ascending to a whole new degree of PvZ. Almost like the very first time this game dropped. I highly recommend trying this challenge for yourself, even if you don't have all the plants unlocked, and see how far you can get. It's harder than it looks. Okay, enough yap. This level was also beat without casualties. After, we're given some mana choices and chose Electropy. Hopefully calling Electropy man doesn't give me karma in Garden Warfare 2. Day 76 had Gargs and 2 flags, and thinking back to the early levels, I kinda regret not ditching Cold Snapdragon sooner. Now don't get me wrong, it was definitely one of the MVPs this run, but if I had known that the slows don't stack for some reason, and Headbutt or Lettuce was good enough for Explorer Zombie, the Cold Snapdragon would have been replaced way early on. Also, I think I've already said this, but Sapfling is so underrated. After day 76, I finally chose this weird bee plant that kept popping up. I'm praying that it isn't secretly broken and you guys aren't screaming at me in the comments, but it is what it is at this point. Day 77 was finally a level without Gargs, so Boingsetta was up to bat again. And I know I've already described how broken Headbutter Lettuce is, but just look at this. Bro had no chance as soon as he got into range. After this coffin tragedy, I quickly got my defenses down and then just stared at the screen for like 5 minutes doing nothing until the level was beat. After day 77, I finally chose Goldbloom because I felt like I'd been doing it dirty this whole run. Day 78 had 3 flags as well as Gargs. Also some very annoying sandstorms. I guess I haven't mentioned one of the other most annoying zombies, which was Tomb Raiser. When all the defenses are prepped, the Tomb Raiser isn't a threat, but in the process of placing all the plants down, the Tomb Raiser is probably the most annoying one of the bunch, because sometimes I would be close to breaking a grave, and our Tomb Raiser would just pre-fire and raise another grave where I could place my plant down. Aside from me venting, we beat day 78, and afterwards chose Impair instead of Hypnoshroom or Charguard. Day 79, there were no Gargs and only 2 flags, so it's a pretty big time save. And it's kind of funny that after all my defenses were planted, I would just give up collecting the sun and let the raw zombies have their fun, in the end getting nowhere with their antics. After day 79, I chose this plant. I think it's called Turkey Pole. This is another plant that I've kept annoying this whole run, and I'm just praying that it isn't secretly broken. On day 80, I truly started to feel like a machine who had 2 different inputs, either no Gargs or yes Gargs, and based on the input, I would do the same exact thing to beat each and every level. Like this level was no Gargs, so Boingsetta was brought in, and then the rest of the regular crew took care of most of the zombies. Debating taking the bunny plant, but it would be extremely disloyal of me to skip out on Torchwood after all we've been through. Day 81 started off annoying as graves filled the screen, and I wasn't able to bring in Boingsetta because of the Gargantuars, so I had to use Pokras and Will Smiths to slowly progress forward and clear out space for my defenses. Once the left 5 rows are clear, it's pretty much GG's after this because the Pokras decimate the graves and the Blast Spinners decimate the Gargs. 2 huge waves and this level was also beat. After day 81, I chose one of the OG goats, Cherry Bomb. I remember when Cherry Bomb was the pinnacle of overpowered, and now we got better versions like Grape Shot or even Heat Seeker. Day 82 is Gargless, so like normal, Sponges with 3 Tile Turnips carried the sun production, and then of course Pokra, Will Smith, and Ayos. This level had a scary amount of Explorer zombies, which got me thinking, if the Sandstorms carried zombies like the Explorer zombies, I would have been cooked a long time ago. So thankfully that isn't a mechanic. I chose Olive Pit. I don't know how it works, but I chose it. Day 83, there's only so many ways I can repeat the same exact thing, so I'm going to specifically point out Pokra's brokenness. What was the point of adding this last long range attack to Pokra? It would have honestly been more than good enough without it. But hey, I can't truly complain because it definitely helped me heavily this challenge. There were 3 huge waves of Garg this day and they were easily taken care of. The options after day 83 were very intriguing. I chose Blastberry Vine, but Intensive Carrot was the interesting one, a plant that I hadn't considered at all. It got me wondering, could I potentially allow reviving 1 plant per level and that would reverse the death of said plant? I won't use it this time in case it's unfair, but next time, maybe. Though if I was to go by the Pokemon Nuzlocke rules, they ban all reviving methods, so Intensive Carrot may be bending the rules a little too much. After day 84, I chose Snow Pea. Day 85 was nothing special, but Sap Fling really fits the AEO name, because why is this ball bouncing? Moving away from that statement, I think PopCap hasn't cooked with an overtime growth plant since Sunshroom. Like the 3 stages seem so fitting, and the combo with Enlightenment makes it even cooler. I mean, PopCap tries here and there, and recently with Doomshroom, but I don't think it hits the same. I chose Hurkill because honestly, it's kind of OP, just not in this challenge. Day 86 only had 1 flag, but also Gargs, so I have to change the timing of placements a little bit, mainly planting Blast Spinner way early on to prepare for the minimal Gargs, and with this, we are able to beat this level. After day 86, I chose Gloomvine. This is one of those plants who would have been really good to have early on. Day 87, I can point out that Boingsetta has an overly large neck. Like it could have been half the size and it still would have been considered overly large. No Gargs means easy dubs, so once again we dominated all the zombies. Afterwards, we finally chose a pretty useful plant, Imitator, which I just noticed. Are those little things supposed to represent arms and legs? I know potatoes normally have those, but they seem strategically placed in this case. I'll name you Nubs. Okay, I know I named the Imitator and I promise I do use it just a little later on though. Also, a little fun fact, if you made it this far without skipping anything, you've so far listened to 11,000 words. Pretty insane. After day 88, I chose Jalapeno, another one of the OG goats. Day 89 was God Combo, 1 flag Gargless, so we beat it pretty easily. Nothing new, just the same strategy. But hey, as I say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Afterwards, we had some atrocious options, and I ended up choosing Hot Date. We're finally on day 90. Only 10 more levels to go after this. I'm gonna take the opportunity to ask, because chances are a lot of people skipped to here. Should I attempt this this on Pirate Seas next, or should I make a PvZ Heroes video? I've been getting a little itch to play Heroes, but if I see y'all are enjoying this, I might have to put myself through torture again. After day 90, I chose Puff Shroom because it just felt right at the time. Day 91 was the worst combo with 4 flags and Gargs, so I quickly got down my sponges, followed by a row of Will Smiths, AOs, and Pokras, and then before the Gargs came in, slowly started replacing the sponges with Spider-Man, and the addition of a second row of Pokra was enough to overpower all the Gargs. After day 91, I chose Bunchi. 91 was 1 flat Gargless, so there was no need for Spider-Man, and Boingsetta was brought in for the ease of my life. The normal strategy was once again enough for all the zombies. Afterwards, I chose Primal Potato Mine as it was the best of the bunch. Like Chili Bean may as well be the worst plant for this challenge, since I don't know if it counts as an insta, because it has to be eaten for activation. Day 93 had a cool gravestone pattern. It kind of looked like a J, but what wasn't cool about this level was how fast it decided to send in the Gargantuars. So I had to quickly shovel my Sunshroom for a sapling, making my replacements look scuffed. But I fixed it soon after the Garg was taken care of. With a solid lineup, the rest of the level was also beat with 0 casualties. And look who decided to show up, basically when the challenge was over. Primal Sunflower. I'll name you Late. Day 94, I finally replaced the Sunshroom Enlightenment combo with Primal Sunflower Imitator, which felt so much better. I could get off 2 full rows of Primal Sunflowers before the first zombie even reached the 5th tile, which is kind of insane. It felt like all technique had left my conscience. I started to feel unbeatable. Okay, I already felt like I would reach day 100 around the time I got Blast Spinner, but even more so now. Spider-Man, Pokra, and AO swiftly defeated all the Gargs, as Will Smith was a great backup. Afterwards, I dished the OGs and went with Explodonut. Day 95, we're basically on the final stretch of the challenge. It doesn't get stretchier than this. Don't ask me what that means. Talking about stretch though, the game decided to stretch my pain by making this level have 4 flags but no Gargs. Any level with no Gargs should honestly only have 1 flag, because whether it be 1, 2, 3, or 4 flags, the outcome is almost always identical. Me having all my defenses prepped before the first huge wave and then just staring at the screen for 5 to 10 minutes. After a long time, day 95 was also beat. Afterwards, I went with Block Coley, who I think is similar to Bamboo Spartan as it's a melee plant with a lot of health. Also, the sunglasses make them look a little too cool. Day 96 felt unreal because I'd now been playing the single run for 12 plus hours. Of course, not in one sitting, but it still felt like a lot, and I was so close to the end. Day 96, I did pull a weird move. I got rid of the Imitator on the Primal Sunflower and instead brought in Boingsetta. Now I could easily remove Graves even on Garg levels, and still have sufficient defenses and sun production. And of course, with this overkill of defenses, we beat day 96. After day 96, I got Lava Guava. I really liked the day 96 strategy, so I brought it in for 97 as well. And thank God I did, because the game was just shamelessly sending in so many Tomb Raisers towards the beginning. But after the Poker replaced, the Tomb Raiser, like the Explorer zombies, just became basic zombies. After 97, I chose what I think is a Mega Iceberg Lettuce from the rumors. Never seen it in action though. Day 98 was 1 flag with no Garg, so it was beat easily. I can almost taste the finish line. I've heard a lot of people use that I can almost taste the finish line phrase, but now using it myself makes me feel a little weird. Afterwards, I chose Citron, who is so different from his Garden Warfare 2 version that it throws me off every time I think about it. Day 99, I'm so close. After 99, I quickly chose Hypno Shroom. Finally, day 100. And I haven't pulled out my editing ult at all this video, so when better than now? 3, 2, 1. But there we have it. We finally beat day 100, and the last plant we get is the true GOAT Iceberg Lettuce. Okay, bye bye.